Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
So you're running lean and scrappy, and then boom, you receive funding. Now what? Today we're discussing the steps to building and scaling headcount in growth mode, making sure that execution and time to fill are aligned. Growth is never by mere chance. It's the result of forces working together. That's a J.C. Penney.
There you go.
He'd be rolling over in his grave if he saw what they did to his stores. Actually, he's not Sears, though, right? I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to provide proven tactical solutions to solve your company's toughest hiring challenges. We share insights from top-performing entrepreneurs and industry experts, like our guest today, Mr. Brennan Rogers. He's the co-founder and leading recruiting of WAG Labs. Brennan is currently leading recruiting at WAG, which raised over $360 million in venture capital. Wow, super impressive. Most recently, $300 million by SoftBank's Vision Fund. WAG connects pet parents to dog walkers and is currently live in over 110 U.S. cities. Who knew? You guys Uberized pet walking. I love it.
That's right.
So he also co-founded a social discovery service to meet new people, which grew to over 50 million users in 10 countries and was acquired by IAC in 2014. You're accomplished, man. Good job.
Thank you.
Brennan, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thank you very much for having me, Rick. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to cover a couple things. We're going to talk about how to ramp up from zero to hero, and then we're going to talk about some steps to put in place to avoid making hiring mistakes. Sound like fun?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to have you pull from some of your experience here because this is really valuable to a lot of our listeners. A lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs and small business leaders. So you guys closed our first round of funding. What did you do?
So in the early days of WAG specifically, when we closed around the first round of funding, we had to obviously scale engineer headcount. And, how are we going to do that? Especially when, you're going super hard trying to scale the business. You're doing whatever it takes to get to the next level and obviously the next day. So we had to basically put a lot of processes in place and procedures to really be able to scale the headcount and hire the right people.
And I would imagine you had a lot of that in place prior to starting, or did you just kind of, all right, now let's execute?
It was pretty much just execute. Super, super scrappy.
Yeah.
Everything changes every day, a lot of moving pieces, but everyone's super passionate and, helping out each other, just getting to the next level. So,
yeah. And I would imagine too, when you're at that point where you're not sure if you're going to get funding, but then you get the funding, I mean, you really kind of have to go into overdrive and then backtrack because you really don't have time to plan for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, in the early days, you're not thinking about setting up a bunch of recruiting processes and spending and allocating money towards expensive recruiting softwares and stuff of that nature. So it's
because you have no resources and have no systems in place, right?
Right. Some of the early recruiting tactics was, just telling people about the brand and people seeing us in the area and how cool we connect pet parents to dog walkers. And people were so interested in what we were building and the mission that they actually asked us to join. And, it organically grew from a recruiting perspective that way. And then eventually, we put a lot of really great resources and processes in place to really scale in all different orgs. So
you're getting your name out there, at least prior to closing your round.
Yeah, we did a lot of local marketing. We took it back to square one, where a lot of guerrilla style marketing, just really going up to dog parks, just really meeting the community and telling them who we are and stuff like that. So, a lot of non-scalable tactics, but at the same time, it really was scalable long-term, building a real trusted brand.
So did you guys have the foresight to identify people prior to getting the money? Like, okay, these are the first 5 people we want to hire and we've got them all lined up.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely walked a lot of folks' dogs that were very interested in what we were building, and we were very word of mouth viral, I would say. People thought it was really cool seeing their dog walked via a live GPS map on their phone. and then getting a report card on how the walk went and having that full transparency of when their dog is being walked. So a lot of people were very interested in the brand. And this was around 2014 where, Uber, Instacart, Lyft, these types of platforms really taking off and scaling, globally.
And you guys started in LA, right?
Yep. So we started
Which is a great place to start because everybody's got a dog in LA.
Right. Yeah. There's
more service dogs in LA that are not service dogs.
Right. Yeah. It's there's a lot of dogs. There's the weather is absolutely phenomenal. People are outside. It's a great place to definitely start a pet service business for sure.
Okay. So what preparation did you guys do before Go Mode?
In terms of
identifying candidates or structure or really defining out your roles and
yeah, so we definitely are very this is a technology business, so we definitely need to scale engineering headcount and product headcount and design headcount. So what we did from a recruiting standpoint, what we still do in the recruiting department at WAG is we target a lot of correlated businesses, at least, the consumer facing gig economy.
Mm-hmm.
So we really identified specific, engineers that worked at these businesses. And as the business grew, we identified what our needs were. And that's kind of how we identified what recs we needed to open and fill.
But the prep time that you guys put in prior to closing the round of funding, would there be anything that you would do differently now? Or any advice that you would give somebody who's about to close a big round? Like, what should you prep for and why you should prep for it first?
I would make sure that you have at least somebody that is identified as the sole recruiter
mm-hmm.
and that there isn't the hiring managers doing the recruiting. And especially if you're raising, significant capital, having a recruiter that is dedicated as their full-time responsibilities is recruiting, I think that would, at least have somebody in place to set up process and get the ball moving a lot quicker than just having hiring managers and senior leader folks focus on.
So you think maybe the first hire or the first person or maybe appointing a point person who's responsible for recruiting rather than just a hiring manager or what have you?
Yeah, I think in my startup experience, you don't really hire recruiters until you're at least 20 to 30, maybe even more folks. So I would maybe identify somebody that is extremely personable, knows the brand inside and out, is, super, super passionate about the business, and identify that person and put them in a room with engineers and product managers and designers and have intake sessions and have them learn all about those specific organizations and put that person in the recruiting seat to begin for sure.
Really all you need is somebody to keep a list of maybe the people that you want to hire. Somebody's going to keep everything organized and maybe a contract recruiter if need be. Just somebody to get things going once you get that money.
Yeah, I think contract recruiting is I have a lot of different thoughts on that, but I think that
you can say them. What are they? you can tell us.
I think that
we want to hear.
Yeah, I think that having a contract recruiter or some sort of agency where they can come in and lay down some foundation is mission critical if you're scaling at a very, very fast pace, because to get ramped up on recruiting sometimes can take a while. So I am someone that's for placing some sort of contract recruiter in the business and helping build the foundation.
Yeah.
Long term, I am not someone that, as you build out a recruiting function, a recruiting team, and you have sorcerers and you have recruiters and full cycle recruiters, agencies are less needed just because you have the manpower.
Yeah. But you really want to get, as a company, you want to get yourself to that position as quickly as possible because agency fees are expensive. I'm expensive, right? So that is what it is.
Yeah. And I think from a cultural perspective too, having recruiters in the business as full-time employees that are culturally driven, that are passionate about the business, only accelerates culture and in the business itself. Whereas sometimes contract recruiters, agencies, they're not in the trenches with the employees hustling and really building out the business. So they may not be able to tell the story as well as somebody that's actually living it.
Yeah, they're not going to champion your culture as well.
And
as well
culture
as
culture is everything,
especially in today's companies. I see a lot of companies that don't put enough stress on the fact that culture is super important.
Yeah, I think culture is something that if you don't have it, it's a huge uphill battle to get, especially as the company progresses. So culture is something that from the very beginning, setting the culture and setting the vision and making sure that everyone is aligned and hiring folks that are very mission driven and very culturally driven with your organization is super key.
That's funny because I'm thinking about, somebody asked me to do a talk about who best to talk about culture or how to make your culture better than somebody who takes people out of your company. A lot of people teach for retention and culture, but they're not really on the inside and they don't really know why people leave. Like the whole benefits industry is interesting to me because people talk about employee benefits help retain talent. And I don't think that's the case at all because people I recruit never say, unless their benefits are taken away 100%, I've never had anybody say, yeah, I want to leave this company because the benefits, or do I want to stay because of the benefits? Because somebody else has the same benefits usually.
Right. Yeah. I think like people, they have to be passionate and they have to be driven by what they're building.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be spending, majority of their day with these other, colleagues and building something that hopefully they really believe in. Benefits and compensation and everything, I think is one thing, but it's not everything.
You guys get the check. Let's say you've got 10 engineering recs that all of a sudden I need to fill. What do I do?
Yeah, so
especially if you don't have a recruiter,
right?
Like your company was fortunate enough to have you as a recruiter.
I felt yes. I fell into recruiting just because of how passionate I am for startups. I love speaking with people. I love finding things on the internet. If someone gives me a challenge, I'm really good at finding things and digging up specific information. And I think a lot of my skill sets is very correlated to recruiting.
Sure.
So I was fortunate that I was put in a position that I could utilize my skills. But what is the most important thing that I would say is if you do receive funding and you don't have recruiters, like I mentioned earlier, is maybe identifying someone in the business that could be the interim recruiter and potentially bringing on a contract recruiter, but setting up processes and a foundation for long-term scale is critical because spreadsheets and printing out resumes and not keeping things organized or having an applicant tracking system is only going to lead you to, it's going to be detrimental and it's not going to be able to scale. And the goal is to build a recruiting organization where you can hire recruiters and basically plug them into your system and have them up and running in no time.
Most companies, though, don't think about building a recruiting organization up front, so I think what you're saying is actually kind of unique that you guys were able to do that. But I've found that a lot of companies that get funding, I need to hire 10 engineers. I don't want to waste that money on a headcount for a recruiter. There's nothing that's put in place. There's no tracking mechanisms. They reach out to 10 or 12 recruiting firms and say, send me engineers.
Right. I think that you can find people that are very, very startup hungry, that are junior to mid-level recruiters that I think that will be at least get the ball rolling and be able to work with contract recruiters. I think that you want to...
Well, if you have a junior person, they can do just as good of a job, in my opinion, as an agency would be able to do because,
of course,
all you have to do is just give them the right tools and resources and a little bit of training.
Right. So one of my mottos is be best friends with hiring managers. Being best friends with hiring managers will only make your recruiting skill sets so much better. And hiring a recruiter that's maybe junior to mid, you can plug them into the business if they're super passionate about what you're building and what the business is building. Have them speak with hiring managers and do a extremely long intake session on the roles that they want to fill. And I'm sure a lot of the employees, especially engineers that are already in the business at that point, they should have a referral network, or they should be able to tell you more about the rec so you have a way better idea of how to recruit for it.
We're talking to Brendan Rogers, the co-founder and lead recruiter over at WAG Labs. If you're just joining us on the live stream or the podcast, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and we're talking about actually, we're going to shift into action plan and execution. How do I put an action plan into place and how do I execute? Start with action plan.
Yeah, I think organization is super key. So say you once you have a recruiter or somebody that's leading recruiting for the organization, this person, I recommend it, really, really understand, what processes are in place. And if there isn't processes at all, build a foundation, implement an applicant tracking system, obviously develop your sourcing channels, LinkedIn, job boards, Quora, GitHub, Dribbble, all these different networks can really provide really great candidates and building out your channels to source and doing that intake session with the hiring manager is super vital to understanding the role.
All right. So you were the recruiter. Do you mind if I dig into kind of like what you did? Is that cool?
Sure.
So you had to first identify what's needed and then put together descriptions. You need to create messaging. You're responsible for doing all that, correct?
Right.
Because you didn't have a marketing team at that point either, right?
Yeah. So we had folks that were part of marketing, but for that specific situation that I would go to them and see what would be some of the best messaging I could use to attract top tier talent. So being very cross-functional and working cross-functionally with other organizations is super key.
What did you find was the most effective way to extract what the hiring manager really needed for you to write your job descriptions?
So we actually, in our organization, we rely on the hiring managers to write the job descriptions.
Okay.
But we, help if needed. If they haven't written a job description in some time, we'll provide other, job descriptions that are out there just to kind of have a version of what those businesses are looking at to try to get a feel and an understanding.
Did you ever find that they didn't know?
Yeah, I think scope of role changes definitely day to day or project by project.
Yeah.
So it's basically iOS engineers, and we need mid-level iOS engineers, and they need this amount of experience. And what they'll be working on, we're not sure yet, but this is what we need, and we went out and executed it.
Got it. We just need iOS people. Find them. Go.
It is the wild, wild west in startups, especially from day one. Even when you get the money on, it is still the wild, wild west.
True.
And having processes in place and having people that can help set that process up is super, super key as the company grows.
Where I feel like you guys were lucky is that you had a bit of a following, kind of were doing something really unique and different. And people who are dog lovers are going to be drawn to that.
Right.
And that's a lot of people.
Yeah, we had our brand was very, very attractive to the eye and what we were doing.
So you had employer branding kind of built into it and made it much easier for you.
Correct. And that really helped word of mouth.
Did you ever find that you reached out to engineers and didn't have them really super interested?
The way we source is we source folks that are in similar stages of a startup or primarily at other startups in the area. Sure. And I think that they understand what they're getting.
I love it. That's very headhunter of you.
Poaching is something that is. I think that's more of a harsh word, but
no, I love it. I think it's a fantastic word. I like my eggs that way too.
A lot of our product and engineering is in West Hollywood, and there's other startups right down the street. You have Tinder, you have Grindr, you have in Santa Monica, you have Headspace and now Bird and Snapchat in Venice. There's companies that have talent there already that been through the different stages of startup growth. So attracting those types of candidates.
So you were able to pull the people that maybe weren't entirely satisfied or super happy where they were.
Yeah, and I think as companies grow, like Snapchat, some people don't want to be employee number 2,850, but people want to be employee number 12 on the iOS team, and they are writing specific features that go live, and they see that in the app, and it's super cool. You may not get that in Snapchat.
See that button? I did that.
Yeah,
right.
And I think that's super cool, and I think there's a lot of people that are very, very driven by that. And I think that's correlated for all different organizations within the business.
All right. So first you should plan on kind of having somebody who's heading up and driving the recruiting side. Second, what should somebody invest in up front? I tend to say, don't waste your money on job boards. How many people did you hire off job board versus the people you went after?
I am not sure, but I will say that job boards, there's some job boards that are really good for specific recs. I think that if you are looking for a data scientist that has 15 years experience, there's some job boards that will not give you those right candidates.
Sure.
But I think there's job boards that if you're looking to hire a really, really great office manager, I think that
sure.
I think that there's job boards that can fulfill that. The tools that are needed is first and foremost an applicant tracking system. I learned that the hard way where I was completely on spreadsheets. And eventually when you start building out really big pipelines and you have multiple recs and then you add another recruiter, organization is key, and applicant tracking systems can really help you, A, be organized, and B, really pull specific data around time to hire and where different candidates at the different stages of the process.
It'll also pull your hiring managers into the process more too, right? It keeps them organized.
So really great tool for getting feedback from hiring managers in a decent amount of time and just getting the process and keeping the funnel open and pushing people through the process. So definitely applicant tracking system. LinkedIn has hundreds and hundreds of millions of users.
Sure.
It's a huge place to recruit from. I definitely recommend signing up for a recruiter seat, maybe not the full-blown recruiter seat at first, maybe the recruiter light. Really tailor your search and, find like-minded companies that are like yours and reach out to folks that are at those like-minded companies.
You mentioned a key thing there is find like-minded companies that are like yours, right? So take the time to identify companies that are competitive adjacent, right? They don't have to necessarily be in your space.
Yeah. I mean, if you are a fashion company in Los Angeles and you're looking for engineers that are going to build this fashion iOS app, I would go on places like AngelList, Crunchbase, and identify LA e-commerce fashion companies, because there's probably 50 of them or 100 of them. And, reach out to those people that work there and find people that have worked there in the past and really go on these other platforms to identify businesses that are in somewhat of the same category. And then cast your net in other areas, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, New York. If we're talking LA specific, I mean, it's 70 degrees, 75 degrees most of the year. Why would someone not want to move here?
People have roots, right? It's hard to get people to move sometimes. I do a lot with relocation sometimes. And my family's here. Try to get somebody to move into California from Texas or something like that. That's a brutal one.
Yeah.
Unless they really want to move.
Relocation may be off topic, but finding someone that works at a startup in New York City that's just graduated college, has a couple years experience, doesn't really have the roots, that would be a candidate that I would say has a higher probability of wanting just to pack their bags and leave.
All right. What would be 3 takeaways that you'd like to give our audience that would help them to succeed once they get the money and not be completely...
I would say, and I said this earlier, is really, really be best friends with the hiring managers. Consistently give updates, consistently give where are the candidates at in the process, just letting them know that you're so on top of it and that they understand where their rec is at. And I think that's so key. So being best friends with your hiring manager. And I say the second thing takeaway is
get organized, right? I mean, get yourself an ATM system, get the right tools. There's a lot of companies that try to do this without investing in any tools.
Right.
And that should be part of your funding.
Right. Always be available, because candidates are checking their emails. Obviously, any 24/7, people can call you, be available on the weekends, respond to emails on the weekends. Give that candidate experience where you're on top of the candidate with the candidate. There's no days off. It's constantly if the candidate says, "Hey, I'm available on Wednesday to come in for an onsite."
When you're a recruiter, it's 24/7
and this
job.
is Saturday night. You're responding to that person because you have to close, and that's what it's like. those are the small things is going to really give the candidate an amazing experience. Candidates are going to talk about how great you are and how you're on top of it. And B, you're going to fill the rec sooner than you think.
I love it. Yeah. All right, shoot, Brandon, we're just about out of time. So I want to thank you for your time investment today and welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way for the members of our community to reach you?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me, Rick. It was a blast.
Yeah,
it was great. This is super cool.
Ball guy power.
Find me on LinkedIn, Brendan Rogers, WAG Labs Inc. Also on Instagram at Brendan P. Rogers. Always available. You can shoot me a message on LinkedIn, constantly on it.
And it's a fantastic app, by the way, too.
Yeah, it's a
I want to go
app.
buy a dog just so I can actually get it walked.
WAG in the App Store, WAG on Android and iOS, and also wagwalking.com. You can also use our service. So
perfect. And we'll put a link in our show notes for you.
Awesome.
Well. Now, you're also going to be speaking at ERE conference coming up in April 22nd to the 24th. What day are you speaking? Do you know?
I think the second day.
Okay.
Yeah.
23rd.
23rd.
Okay. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, super pumped. It seems like there's a great group of people that are going to be there, and super excited to meet other industry-related folks and stuff like that. So
it's a phenomenal conference.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, they put on a great show.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm going to be speaking too.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Let's go.
All right. So I want to thank our listening audience for tuning into this week's episode of Higher Power. Quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts, our producers, Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, especially review. We want to make sure the content's great for you, so drop us a comment. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, that's Hire, Power, Power, radio.com. Or you can follow us on Facebook at Higher Power Radio or me on Instagram at Rick Gerard1. Tune in next week. Our guest is going to be Chris Russell. Chris is the managing director of RecTech Media. He's also a fellow podcast host. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Gerard on OC Talk Radio.